inductee is Mr. Subir Roy, and presenter is Mr. John McNeil.
I don't know when I've been so excited. And that is because after graduating from high school, I went to college, went up north for 50 years. And I came back down here and I've heard so many people pronounce Chapel Hill the way I remember it. Thank you. I really enjoyed this. Before I get started, I'd like to recognize some alumni that made all this happen. First, of course, the Hall of Fame committee for this opportunity to be here. Second, a longtime fan and friend of Subi Roy's, Claudia Kennedy, class of 43. Yeah. and sponsor of his candidacy here tonight. Also, there are two classy ladies who kept this ball rolling for Claudia. Tina Bell, Dave McLaughlin, both of class of 59. So, and finally, I'd like to thank Sue Wallace, class of 60, and Peter Ross Range, class of 59, who put this introduction together. As far as Chapel Hill, as far as the class of 1959 is concerned, nobody deserves to be in the Hall of Fame more than Subi.
Loud, we can't hear you. Turn the microphone on. Yeah, try to.
I can get closer. Closer. Subi was not only the star athlete of our class, he was also the star person. Subi didn't even set foot in America until he was 8 years old. He came to Chapel Hill with his parents from Calcutta, India. But Subi became the most all-American boy you could have imagined. Besides being co-captain of the football and the basketball team, Subi was also elected by his schoolmates as the president of the student body and best all-around in the Hill Life yearbook. Subi started his sports career as the 135-pound quarterback on the JV team. Within 4 years, he became the 135-pound, 2-year all-conference quarterback that led the varsity team to a 7-3 winning season in 1958, the team's best record in 10 years. And this included an historic victory over arch rival Hillsborough, who had dominated Chapel Hill for a decade. I don't know if y'all remember, we had some dry spells too. During that season, Subi passed for 701 yards, and he ran the ball for 257 yards. The Chapel Hill newspaper, probably the Weekly, wrote that Subi sidesteps, weaves, hurdles, and spins his way for a rushing average that often surpasses that of his halfbacks. Fearless, competitive, selfless. These words are best illustrated by a picture in the 1959 yearbook. It shows Subi, the quarterback, throwing a perfect running block on an in-around play so that his halfback could make the turn upfield. Subi was also an outstanding leader. Coach Bob Colton, also known as Boss Bob to us, said Subi is probably the best thinking quarterback I've ever had. When he calls a play, the boys are sure that that's the play that'll go. They've got tremendous confidence in him. We did. Besides being elected student body president, Subi was probably the best known and best liked teenager in town during the late 50s. He was a favorite of all the moms because of his good manners and winning smile, as you will see. And he was also the hero with the dads because he helped the high school win so many games. hey, it was the 50s, you know? Eisenhower was president. Subi went on to become chief of gynecology at the University of Southern California Medical School, and he just recently retired. Those of us who grew up with Subi were very lucky to have him as a friend and a teammate. Thanks to the Sports Hall of Fame, other generations can now know that there was once a little guy from India with a heart as big as the sports he played, who ran the fields and threw the ball at CHHS and made us all proud. Thank you.
It's a dear pleasure for me to be here. I'm so gratified for this honor. When Tina called me and told me that I'd been elected to the Caldwell High School Sports Hall of Fame, I started laughing. Because at that moment, I was scheduled for spinal stenosis surgery and I couldn't even walk. I said, you're gonna have to wheel me out there. But this honor, in part, is directed to me, but I think also to an era. I reflected and I have a few vignettes that I've put together. 1955 to 1959, the happiest years. I remember in football, staying low or run where they aren't. Bob Culton, he came, he saw, he conquered. He transformed a moribund program, and we were fortunate enough to be his first year. He taught us meticulous attention to detail, to outthink the opposition, and that intelligence defeats physical advantage. In the era we played, it was the single platoon era. We called all the plays on the field. Play, he had to send in somebody with the play. Not take, as a cornerback, tame the sweep and cave ever let anyone get behind you, like Lincoln. So at night, which you couldn't see, you imagined. Hence, Peter Range and Paul Houston, accomplished word masters, embellished we had on that football team. Gerald Farrell and Bob Madry at ends, Ronald Wright at tackle. I apologize, remember our left tackle. Larry Crabtree, Bill Akridge at guards, and the incomparable Tiger, John McNeil at center, Bill Whitney at fullback. Charlie Fast, I often couldn't get to him in time on dive plays, being a new play. While Bill Whitney made the belly series deceptive and effective. And who can ever forget Gerald Farrell imitating Boss Bob at our year-end party? In basketball, we tried but couldn't continue the phenomenon of the 1956-57 year in Chapel Hill, when Lincoln High, Chapel Hill High School, and UNC all went undefeated into the postseason, with Carolina becoming national champions. Having graduated the dominant players, the talents, like Gordon over here, we remained scrappy and competitive, but could not reproduce that incredible year. We were no turnkey kids. We learned from our parents. Maxine and Miles Fitch, graciousness and hospitality. Were there ever no milk and cookies? Tiger's father, fear and respect. Mrs. Jamerson, whose son Jimmy, our classmate, was an All-American swimmer at Chapel Hill High School, said that at Rice University, where she met her husband, our coach, Jamerson, that Rice was a football powerhouse because unless they won, the girls wouldn't go out with them. A very simple solution. Willie Demerit on raising kids. Teach them how to fly, and when it's time, let them fly. Our girls were cherishable in no particular order. Betsy, Tina, Kathy, Day, who used to call me Subi Little Britches. Curious how some things you never forget. Toby, Brenda, Margaret, Betty Sue, Helen, Rosine, Ann, Marion, Wanda, Pat, Sandy, Sue, Dee, Becky, Pam. Details are not in order. And they made the wreck with Sarah Umstead and sock hops at the old tin can in our new gym unforgettable. Our teachers were demanding and stimulating. Mrs. Sullivan, Mrs. Somerville, Miss Rainey, Miss Marshbanks, and Miss Lewis. Persistent support was a hallmark. None more dedicated than Claudia Kennedy, who's been like a guardian angel to many of us, especially to me, whom I shall always cherish. Ours was a special time, which all classes claim, however, witnessed the numbers who've returned after more than half a century to remember the wonderful times in our love for old CHHS. I thank you all very much on behalf of not only me, but on behalf of all of us. Thank you.